Hey everyone, welcome to an Over a Beer movie review. My name is Rich.
I'm Nick.
I'm Dana.
And we just saw Ghostbusters.
We did.
The new remake.
That's why I changed my name to Dana.
Yeah?
She's in Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Yes.
In the original.
Mm-hmm.
Not the new one. So we've seen the new Ghostbusters. You recently saw the new one, or the old one, the original. Go back, watch that video. We're not going to talk about that one too much. Well, I'm sure it'll come up.
Yeah, it'll come up. And per usual for movie reviews, the first section will be spoiler-free. And then we will be very clear once we jump into spoiler territory and talk about,
So I can't say that they all died.
I mean, you can, but...
They literally become Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
No. So anyway, all right, yeah. So we're going to keep it spoiler-free. We're going to give our opinions on the movie, and then we'll talk a little bit more in detail. So let's get Dana's opinion first.
Okay.
This is a female-led film. Let's get the female's opinion, and then we'll get into our thoughts.
I loved it. It was hilarious. And I don't think it was, silly, girl stupid. You know what I mean? They didn't make the women look ridiculous.
It wasn't a Katherine Heigl movie.
It was fun. It was very fun.
It wasn't the ridiculous Bridget Jones Baby trailer.
Oh, okay.
we saw
That movie
beforehand.
looked great. I want to see that.
All
But
right, yeah,
no,
so
I
what were you
really
saying? So
I
they
really
didn't
enjoyed
make
it.
They didn't make the women ridiculous.
No, they made them respectable. They weren't like, oh, those are ditzy women. Oh, they're just trying to be funny and trying to catch ghosts. It was very good the way they did it. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if I can say this, so I'll just let you guys talk. Well, I was going to say, even the one woman that's not a scientist, which I'm sure you can get
that's
that
known.
idea.
I mean...
they didn't make her seem just because she wasn't a scientist, they didn't make her seem just, ridiculous.
Yeah, so
you
you're
know
talking
what I
about
mean?
the Leslie Jones character.
Yeah.
Which, while I'm thinking about it, while we're talking about her, I wanted to bring up the one thing I appreciated about her character in the film is, as much as I love all four of the original Ghostbusters, you watch the first movie and Winston Zeddemore has literally nothing to do. For most of the thing, they don't even show him bust ghosts.
Yeah.
They don't show him do anything. And he doesn't actually have a practical reason to be on the team.
Yeah.
And they really did give her a reason to be there.
Sure.
Which was cool. They developed all the characters. So, Richard, you and I, we've been lifelong Ghostbusters fans. We've had kind of slightly different feelings leading up to this movie. So I'm definitely interested to hear what you thought. We have not discussed.
Yeah.
But overall, is this movie the first movie? No. And it never was going to be. And that would be unfair expectations. In my mind, I never looked at it if it's not better than the original, then it was a terrible movie.
Sure.
That's just not how I looked at it. And so, as I was watching it, I have issues with some of it. I thought that there were definitely some sequences that fell flat, both from action standpoint and from comedy standpoint. But there was definitely enough in this movie that I enjoyed myself essentially throughout. And I thought that the chemistry between the four Ghostbusters was great. I like all the new characters. They're totally fine. The women are really good. I liked what Dana said. It's funny. I watched Sucker Punch last night. And that's another female-led, big-budget movie. And and I like that movie, but these could not be done.
The only person.
I'm the only person in the world who likes Sucker Punch. But the difference between Sucker Punch is it's clearly, yes, it is women in an action-led movie, but it is so clearly women in a way presented to please men. And this is really just
Women empowerment.
They all feel very grounded.
It was very refreshing to see. There was a point near the end, an action sequence where the thought actually crossed my mind, this is pretty cool that in 2016 we're finally at this point where they aren't sexy women doing sexy thing. They're just women in a big budget movie, and that was cool.
And there was no point throughout the movie where they were like, oh, they can't catch ghosts because they're women. There's only one part in the movie where they just made any mention that they were women, because he said something like, oh, you shoot like a girl. That was the only thing.
Yeah.
And everything else was very well, not that wasn't the problem in the movie, was that they were women.
Yeah, so anyway, we can talk more about that in a second. I liked the movie. I enjoyed the movie. I had a good time with it. I don't think it shits on the original at all. I think it's its own thing.
Yeah.
With some fun callbacks, some not so fun callbacks too. And then I also wanted to say I liked the 4 Ghostbusters. I said that, but Chris Hemsworth was awesome too. He was really funny. He did a fun job, I thought.
He's great everywhere.
All right, so I get this feeling that you had a different take.
There are definitely things about the movie I like. I like the chemistry of them. I think Kate McKenna and Chris Hemsworth are probably the best parts of this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like they're totally run into the ground too much. Like, they're too overused. This is the most I've liked Melissa McCarthy in a long, long time, probably since Bridesmaids. But I did not like this movie. I don't think it's awful, but I don't think it's good.
Why?
It's a mess. There's pacing issues all over the place. I mean, right from the get-go. I don't want to get too detailed into some of that stuff. I didn't think most of it was very funny.
I was cracking up.
I mean, I think from a pure laugh standpoint, it has far funnier moments than anything in the first movie.
This is very much a modern comedy Ghostbusters movie. Like, it's not... Like, I don't want to say, oh, it's for, like, the Hangover because it's not... doesn't push it to that extent, but it's very much of that... It's the type of comedy you would expect it to be from the trailer.
Yeah. I mean, what were they going to do? Just make the couple little puns from the 80s?
Sure,
You know,
but I mean, it's...
I mean, there is an expectation if you're going to make a comedy, and you have extremely funny people in the movie. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't really understand what you were expecting.
No, I mean, it is from the trailer, it is exactly what you would expect from the trailer.
I thought it was better than the comedy in the trailer, personally. I thought that there were a few... There's definitely some parts that fall flat.
Mm-hmm.
There was like that whole part where they just kept going on and on about the cat out of the bag, where I was just like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, nothing in this is working. But there were definitely a lot of moments in the movie that I thought were funny. There were cool moments with the ghost. There were... I mean, like I said, I remember when we talked about the original, I was like, I don't think there's going to be any part in this movie that makes me scared at all, like when I was a kid, when I watched the library scene, and there wasn't, but you were terrified.
I was so
two or three
scared.
scenes.
I jumped so many times just because, I mean, it's not like it was like gory scary, but it was very like pop, like bam, like you didn't expect that to happen. That really scared me. But I also liked, when you're talking about humor, I liked how all the funny parts were not in the trailer, which is kind of what I was expecting. I was expecting to see like the majority of all the funny jokes.
See, I feel like most of them were, with the exception of the McKenna and Hemsworth stuff, most of the jokes I thought were in the trailer.
I mean, it's all... The thing with comedy is it's all relative.
Sure,
things
sure.
that you didn't find funny, if Dana, finds funny, there's really no part.
Do you want to jump into spoiler stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we can...
We're beating around a lot of bushes right now. So...
I'll just say, I would say... It's totally worth going to see.
I would too.
Okay. Alright, so from here on out, spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers going forward.
And probably we might spoil the old movies too.
Yeah.
Even the ones I haven't seen?
The one that you haven't seen. No, we probably won't talk about Ghostbusters 2.
Okay.
Alright, so... Go into greater detail.
Okay, so... right from the very beginning... Like, there's editing and pacing issues throughout. Like, it feels very disjointed. There's literally, she goes from saying, you guys have fun, I'm not going to go with you, when they're out talking to the people at the museum. And then it cuts and she's in there and you're like, she just said she wasn't going to go with them.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused about that part. I mean, I think, like, she says, like, I'll get rid of the book if you get us a meeting with them. And
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
like, he'd like to meet you.
And they go and they
But-
meet, and she
and then-
says, "Okay, you've met. I'll see you guys later." And
But I think
then
like,
they're in the library, or in the not library, the
Haunted house.
museum, whatever it
Well,
is.
I mean, she walks over with them. With the issue with that scene is before when they're driving there. I mean, I think that she totally they show her walk in with them. I mean, I didn't have an issue with the way that you're saying it. I had an issue beforehand where it didn't really make sense. But like, who the fuck cares? You know what I mean?
There's so much of that, like where it's just like, oh well, now this is just cut to this, and we've forgotten the fact that they've destroyed the proton packs, and now everything's working again. Or she's bothered. She's having this trouble getting across town, and then boom, she's there right when they need her. Like there's no.
I was wondering about the proton packs when Melissa McCarthy destroyed them. And then I thought that maybe that was going to play into the movie, and it's going to be like, oh, we only have 2 now because 2 were destroyed, and that was like another major problem, but it wasn't. I'm sure they had extras, they're like smart women. They probably had extra.
Honestly, I'm not really sure. I mean, she definitely destroys 1, and then in the entirety of that, the rest of the movie is just that big action scene.
And they all use them.
They use different weapons, though. They're using
Actually, they don't even use that.
I don't think there's a point where all 4 point the thing.
They all use it on the monster at the end, where they shoot it in the dick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
But
Yeah.
again, who knows how many they have? But honestly, like that's the thing. Like I don't really care. Like this isn't like I wasn't watching Lincoln, and it's like
no, but
like wait a minute, when did they pass that legislation? Like I just don't care. Like the thing is with this movie, it was just I just had a fun time. Like I don't really
see.
care.
I was honestly bored. Like there was a part I was like, I'm just ready for this to be over.
And I mean that's totally fair. I just didn't feel that.
I mean, I'm the odd one out because my girlfriend too is like, I had fun. Like I don't.
Yeah,
really...
I mean, we should say it's a Friday night when we're recording this. We saw this opening night at 7:40, like a prime time. The theater was not very full.
No.
But the people that were in the theater, I got the vibe that you were the only person.
Yeah.
There were people constantly like cheering and like clapping at
gasping,
the cameos, which
like,
I never enjoy.
Those
but,
cameos, they're.
Yeah, I mean we can talk about that stuff.
Yeah, we can go into the cameo stuff. The Dan Aykroyd one was the one that was spoiled for me. They show that in the trailer. And, like I felt like that would have been one that I might have.
I didn't like that. I didn't like any. The only cameo that I thought was even kind of cool to see him come up, and it's weird, was Ernie Banks or Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson.
I mean,
I thought Annie Potts worked.
Yeah, no, that definitely worked. She was good. I'm not a fan of Sigourney Weaver cameos. I didn't like the Sigourney Weaver cameo in that other horror movie, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I feel like she would have worked better in a big... Like, if they had made her the mayor or something.
Yeah.
Instead of just...
Andy Garcia, like, what the hell?
That made no sense. And, like, they just... She has a cameo, but it's, like, a credits cameo, and there's like, oh, shit, we gotta put Sigourney Weaver in it. What do we'll just throw her in the end. Just throw her in at the end.
Yeah, she is the kind of... Sense. I think that you could... There's obviously... unless Bill Murray comes back as a ghost in the next one, they killed off his little cameo.
Yeah.
Which, the thing that I didn't like about bringing in him, Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, the 3 of them, they brought him back with nothing to do. Like, Bill Murray's in 2 scenes, and he's not funny.
No, he doesn't do anything.
He doesn't try to be funny.
I liked his first scene.
Yeah,
on the TV.
Maybe just left it as
and then,
that.
there was no need for him to come back and to let that ghost out because it didn't matter. It didn't matter. What
it ultimately didn't matter at all in the plot of the movie.
At least it would have been cool if, like, say, like in the lobby of that Chinese restaurant, there had been a piano, and he comes in and he just like goes like, and then they say like, stop that, we hate that, or, like some callback to something that Venkman does.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, but the way that he was presented, it was just like, all right, you wasted Bill Murray.
Yeah.
But, whatever. But I felt like, the Ernie Hudson one, at least, like, that was a kind of a payoff to the setup of who's the uncle.
Sure.
And he was the uncle, and he was upset. He gets the last line, which was kind of, I thought it was kind of funny. Like, I'm not going to stack bodies like flashbacks or whatever. But, yeah, Annie Potts, that did work.
Mm-hmm.
The cameo that I thought was the worst one, it felt out of place, too cartoony, was Slimer. And then, like,
God, that was
female
awful.
Slimer.
His girlfriend.
That was stupid.
And he was too it was just too ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then played too big of a role in how they stop everything.
See,
right?
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, I don't understand Slimer to begin with, because he's literally, like, and I'm pretty sure in the first movie, that he's, like, the only, like, cartoony ghost. All the other ghosts are, like, people, you know, like, you can see, like, the people in them, or they're, like, animal, like the gargoyle, you know what I mean? And he was the only one that's, like, cartoon. And again, in this movie, he's the only one that's, like, cartoony.
Kind of,
Which I think he would have
been hot air balloons that were ghosts.
That was I was
Yeah, but-
pissed at that too.
I didn't even really see them as
I wasn't
ghosts.
pissed, but it was like, what the,
I saw them as possessed. Like,
see, like,
Hemsworth was doing it.
that was the argument that my girlfriend brought up too. But I'm like, they clearly state these balloons were like
Yeah, but
old
honestly,
balloon, like
now
not
that you
of
say it-
this era balloons. And I'm like, well, then how are the balloons?
nothing was of that era. But
Yeah.
he was controlling it all. It was like the parallel dimension
Well,
was
yeah.
on top of them.
I got that,
And, I mean...
but there's not hot air balloon or balloon ghosts.
Or is there?
Well, that's the thing. I guess they
That's the
weren't
thing,
ghosts.
you
They
never
probably
know.
were being controlled by Hemsworth. They show that he could control all those people.
Yeah, I guess.
But that was... If you want to talk about kind of sloppy, it makes no sense, really, that the Rowan ghost would have all these. Like, why is he Super Ghost?
Yeah.
What did he do to become Super Ghost?
Yeah, what makes him any more different than any other ghost that can come into the...
But, again, I don't care. Like, I went in, it was an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
There's been a million awful movies this summer, and things that should have been fun that weren't, and I just had a good time watching it. But there was one other... I do want to talk a little bit more about why I liked the things that I liked.
Okay, and I don't totally... For me, this movie is summed up by the last line of that movie, where they're standing on the balcony and they're looking out and they go, "It's not terrible." That's kind of how this movie... Like, there's definitely things I like.
Yeah, and the main thing that I wanted to point out, I liked Hemsworth, but I really liked Holtzman. She was awesome. Kate McKinnon.
Yeah.
Like, she was so unique and so just, like...
Quirky.
Yeah, and just refreshing. Like, I mean, I haven't watched much of new SNL, so I'm not
Yeah, I haven't really
her.
really seen her or Leslie
So,
Jones in SNL.
Yeah, and I thought Leslie Jones, you know, she had a couple good moments. Kristen Wiig had a couple of good moments. And so did Melissa McCarthy, and they didn't do the Melissa McCarthy thing.
No, there was a couple parts where they were getting there,
I
and
thought
then
the
they
one
stopped
point
it.
where Melissa McCarthy got to do kind of what she's been the last few years in comedies was the possession scene, and I thought because it was isolated to that one, it actually was.
So
I
that,
thought,
and
quite
then
fun.
like the weapons test where she's like, "Oh, I'm wrestling it like an alligator, and I'm riding the."
Which I mean I enjoyed overall, but and then Chris Hemsworth, he was really funny. Like it's weird, like I found him very funny in this. I found him actually very funny in Vacation.
I still haven't
Like
seen.
I think that he's one of those actors, like honestly like Brad Pitt, where when he's asked to carry an entire movie by himself, he's not that interesting. Like you look at like why Black Hat went wrong, why Heart of the Sea went wrong. But when he gets to pull back and just be a supporting
It's like
role,
Brad Pitt in Burn After Reading.
Exactly. Brad Pitt in Burn After Reading, Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys, Brad Pitt in any movie where he's not asked to lead it.
Yeah.
He does these like amazing weird things, weird choices. But when he has to be the lead, sometimes he's not as interesting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about Hemsworth. I wish that he would just do these, but he has the leading man looks, you know.
Yeah, I really like Hemsworth, but I think they just drive some of it into the ground. It's like, oh, here's the thing where he's like, I made up my logos, and it just kind of keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going.
Oh, he only showed like 4.
Yeah, maybe 3. But I mean, I see what you mean. Like if you felt that way, then that could definitely be how that felt. But like the entire movie, even near the end, I was like, I'm not really sick of his character. Like even at the credits when he was doing like the
All
ridiculous
the
dancing and
dancing?
stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm just kind of like charmed by this entire thing.
See, I was bummed because they set that scene up in the movie, and I was like waiting for them to do.
I
like,
think it was totally part of the movie.
like a thriller or like some kind of like scene. I was like, okay, that could be kind of, and they don't do anything with it, and then it's like, well, we have it, so we might as well throw it into the credits.
I think it's a pacing thing, and like you said, you already had problems with the pacing. At a certain point, the movie would feel too long. It would feel like one thing too many, and so I think absolutely they didn't choreograph, freaking Omar from The Wire doing dancing.
If they weren't didn't intend to.
It was originally in the movie.
Yeah.
And it worked fine in the credits, probably, is what they felt. So.
Yeah. I actually liked Kate McKinnon's character more as it went on. Like, when she was introduced, I was, like, kind of like, this is what everybody's been raving about. And then, like, as her lines and her bits, I thought, got better and better.
Yeah. I thought she was very
And I did really like that her scene at the end. Like, a lot of that stuff at the end didn't do much for me, like all the action, them fighting the ghost, but like her bit with the things worked really well.
That was really, really cool. It was cool. It was effective. Mm-hmm. She sold it, and I felt like a lot of the action at the end was not particularly well done. It wasn't well choreographed. It wasn't too interesting. But yeah, that moment was really cool. And she goes around and she's flipping, and all of that. Like it was cool. Definitely. Any closing thoughts on this movie? All right, so the end, the very, very, very end is, I guess it sets up the potential of Zool maybe introducing some more elements of the first movie. Do you want to see a sequel to this movie? Not
really. If it came out, I would see it, but to me, I'm just kind of like, okay, like, this movie happened, I don't care if...
But would you want to see it if it was not based on, but they're using more familiar elements from the first one?
Not really. Like, I don't need another one of these. I would watch it if it came out, just because I'm curious. But I didn't leave this like, oh, I can't wait to see their next adventure. Like, I was like, okay, like, you waited how many years for Ghostbusters 3 or a remake to happen, and I left kind of meh on it, and I'm like, okay, if you want to just let it to rest now, I'm okay with that.
I would be incredibly disappointed if this did not continue.
Okay.
Not necessarily even because I feel like I necessarily need a second entry in this, but if there's no sequel to this, it's because the movie doesn't perform well. And I don't think that the movie doesn't deserve to perform well, because I understand that you don't like it for legitimate reasons, but I think that the outcry of the few tainted the mindset of hundreds of people that will enjoy the movie, like hate, Ilea, like Dana, like myself.
The hate that this movie got early on about the female stuff, all that stuff was totally unwarranted, and I don't think, and the reasons that people were complaining about it originally are not held up from the movie. I have other issues with this movie, but not any of the issues that were brought up in this. Like, one of my concerns going into this was it's going to be beat for beat the original, which it was not. There are very familiar beats in this movie, but it is not the original movie, which was one of my concerns. But yeah, I think it being tainted with that is an issue. Now, I could also be interested in a sequel because they may look at the legitimate issues that people did have with this movie and go, okay, let's learn from this, and then the second one could improve.
Yeah, totally. And it's just the fact, if this movie does fail, having gotten decent reviews, it will only hurt the case of these types of movies being made with women.
Yeah.
It really will, because the story will become that narrative that came from people.
There was this huge outcry about women, and look at it. It didn't do well, and now...
And studios won't take that risk.
Yeah.
And that doesn't deserve to happen, because the movie isn't dog trash.
They're good in it.
Yes, they are awesome.
They are good in it. The four of them are not my issues, are the least of my issues with this movie. My other complaint is that god-awful Fall Out Boy remix that's in this movie. I hated it even more this time.
This is the first time I heard it. I didn't listen to it before.
I didn't really listen to it. It was in a trailer or somewhere, and I was like, this is terrible. And it played again, and this, and I was like, wow, I'm just... Did you like it, Dana?
Uh,
He keeps looking at you, and I was like waiting for.
I just like the original. Like I like the beat of the song.
Okay.
So I guess I can agree with you. I like the original.
Well, that was like my girlfriend's argument was, well, it's a hype. If they're getting hype, it doesn't have to be a good song. I'm like, but they ruined a good song.
They ruined a catchy song. If anything, I wouldn't even necessarily say ruined. Like I honestly feel like we have this affection for the Ghostbusters theme because it is catchy, but because we heard it so much as kids. Like I feel like there had to have been a large percentage of adult people in the 80s seeing that movie who were like, that's a little bit ridiculous. Because it's also kind of supposed to be ridiculous.
Well, sure.
I don't know. I'm not gonna download the Fall Out Boy version of the Ghostbusters theme and put it like on my running playlist or something, but it's just another thing where I'm just kind of like whatever. Like I don't view this as, how do I put this in a I view Ghostbusters as a legitimately great movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't view this. I view this as entertainment. I don't view it as something that needs to be analyzed in the same way that I would analyze a classic film.
Sure.
So these little things, it's just kind of like, whatever. That's not what I went to this for. I'll go see, something else, something more serious and worry about getting those types of enjoyment. Anything else? Dana, you want to see the sequel? You didn't say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would like
figured,
to.
So.
As long as it has Chris Hemsworth in it.
I'm sure it would. All right, very cool. So that's Ghostbusters. So that's one of the only a couple big movies left this summer.
Yeah.
Honestly, we have Jason Bourne in a week, and then Suicide Squad, and
I thought there was something else that I was thinking that we should talk about.
Yeah, Bridget Jones' Baby.
The Space Between Us.
what the hell was that?
That was just.
I've never seen so many talented people attached to such a fake movie. All right. So anyway, that's gonna wrap up, I think, this episode.
Yeah.
What did you think of Ghostbusters? If you stuck through, you didn't care about the spoilers, let us know. You can tweet at us if your team. It was a fine movie. Tweet at Stonks and
or at Dana Explains.
And if you were unhappy with the movie or bored by it,
or if
and
you just don't like having fun
and don't want to, and aren't going to complain about the women either, you can tweet at me at Rich Belson. You can find the channel on Twitter at OABeer_official and find us on Facebook at facebook.com/overabeer. Instagram is over_a_beer. And of course, YouTube at youtube.com/overabeer. But that will wrap up this Over a Beer movie review. So until next time, drink up.
buttermilk.